Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast. Using my sportscasting background, I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players to gain more insight on what makes this team go. As the Detroit Lions enter a new gritty era, we'll look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we preview the Detroit Lions Week 5 matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do we know about Tampa? What are we expecting from each team? And what do we view as vitals for success? Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Corey Schlesinger, and you are listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
I'm joined by Coach Jerry Angers, named Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's also mentored numerous players at the college level and some all the way to the NFL. As always, good to have you here, Coach.
Oh, great to be here, especially those weeks after those big victories.
Exactly. And, as we get into it, just a reminder to the listeners, please hit that subscribe and like button. It is helping us build momentum, just like the Detroit Lions are building momentum. And, Coach, it is a lot easier to talk about these game previews after we come off a win. And let's get to a couple transactions real quick. The Lions added a defensive back to the roster, Anthony Averett. He's a 2018 fourth-round pick for Baltimore. He played there and with the Raiders. Appears he played in 51 games with 27 starts. That is according to MLive, along with adding tight end Anthony Ferkser, a 5-year vet, who has seen time with the Titans and Falcons active rosters. That led the Lions to release defensive back Darius Phillips and wide receiver Trey Quinn. We will talk a little bit about injuries later, but let's look at the Lions. They're back on the road this week. They're heading to Florida to take on the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Coach, this game was flexed from a 1 o'clock start time to a 4:25 start time. More viewing audience for America's Game of the Week. Are the Lions America's new team? I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. Coach, I want to ask you this. Both teams are from the same time zone. So does this flexing thing matter at all? I mean, we've seen the Lions play some Thursday night games. Does this really matter?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're all used to playing, the 1 o'clock or the 4 o'clock or the Thursday night or the Monday night or the Sunday night. They got a schedule down. They can get themselves ready for either way.
All right. Well, the other thing they have to get ready for is maybe a little retro throwback old school, because Tampa Bay is going to be wearing those creamsicle uniforms, the stuff from the 80s. And I got to admit, I was really hoping somehow the Lions would be wearing their old NFC throwbacks, from the Lomas Brown and Chris Spielman days.
That would have been great. That would have been a classic for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the Lions will be wearing, but those were not uniforms listed as possibilities this season. So I'm sure we'll find out sometime during the week what to expect from the Lions uniforms. But nevertheless, a 4:25 kickoff with a little NFC Central throwback action. So let's take a look here at maybe some of the biggest differences from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from last year to this year. And I mean, their quarterback and running back situations jump out as the biggest. No bigger than no Tom Brady. Baker Mayfield is their quarterback, and Leonard Fournette, their starting running back, is no longer there as well. Those are some pretty significant changes, aren't they, Coach?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you got, of course, you're going to talk about Tom Brady. Everybody calls him the GOAT and what he led him and stuff like that. But I think they picked up probably just about a perfect quarterback for their system. And then, running back wise, they're not going to be able to pound the ball up the middle like they did with Fournette. But, they're still putting some points on the board, and they're winning games. They're 3-1. And, I think, we could talk about Baker, which we will later, but him and Bowles, the head coach, come from the same cloth about, walk-ons and undrafted free agents and moving around and winning games. So I don't think it hurts us anymore. I think it makes them a little bit better because Baker Mayfield is scary and hungry, and Tom Brady was Tom Brady.
All right, well, another person that is actually on their team might surprise you. He's not going to play a significant role or possibly any role, but maybe, I don't know, quarterback John Wolford is on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. He is, of course, the former backup to Jared Goff, and at one point, he was chosen to start over Jared Goff in that final season by McVay, and that just kind of seems a little crazy today when you're looking at the stats in the NFL. But again, that's the full circle thing of you never know how things are going to go. Just wanted to point that out. Former teammate run into a former teammate.
Yeah, that's yeah, they end up seeing each other, that's for sure, somewhere, whether it's on the same sideline or opposite. So that's the big NFL family for you.
Let's talk about what we expect out of Tampa coming into this game. And I think perhaps there's a lot more questions than answers at this point. I mean, you already talked about it. The Bucs started the season 3-1. They didn't have a week 5 game, so they were on a bye. They probably have a better record than most people were expecting. And so I took a little closer look at who they played. And well, they started week 1 and week 2 with wins against the Vikings and the Bears. So they helped the Lions out with the division there. With a 3-point and 10-point victory. And then they lost to the Eagles by 2 touchdowns. And then most recently, they beat down the Saints 26-9 in week 4 before that bye week. So, what do we make of this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team?
I'm going to go with Baker. I mean, Baker's the key there. Baker was 25 for 32 for 246 yards, 3 TDs, and 1 pick against the Saints. Baker's scary. He's one of those guys that when his back is on the canvas, he jumps up because he wants to prove everybody wrong. He's the underdog. He walked on twice in college. He didn't go to Texas where he wanted to go. He ended up winning a huge award in college. What's that one award called? I can't remember. I think he's the only first walk on. And every time he's down, he gets back up, and that makes Baker Mayfield scary. He can't figure out why Cleveland got rid of him. And again, I don't know why they do. And, he's just one of those guys. You put him in that locker room with those guys that have been in the Super Bowl, those guys that have played with Tom Brady and learned from the experts. You got Coach Bowles, who won a Super Bowl himself with the Redskins. He was an undrafted free agent and played 8 years in the league. You just put a mix of guys together, and you got a hungry dog like Baker Mayfield who's trying to prove everybody wrong. You got a scary animal, man, and you got they're 3-1 for a reason, and they got skilled guys, and then Devin White's coming back this week. Their linebacker, it's crazy.
So Baker Mayfield, you said it. That guy is a former number 1 overall pick in 2018. And let's be honest, he did not do the Detroit Lions many favors last year. I mean, he led the Rams to a win over the Raiders on a Thursday night game after he got signed like on a Monday. And then that hurt the Lions draft pick because we got the Rams draft pick. And then week 18 against the Rams, I don't know if I'm more angry with him or the television announcer or Condre Diggs, because there was a wide open wide receiver, according to the announcer, and former Lions Condre Diggs comes in there and intercepts the ball. I mean, that would have been the difference in the Lions making the playoffs or not. So, yeah, Baker Mayfield, I don't know if the word quagmire is the right word to describe him, but there's something interesting and unique about him that his future is not yet determined in the NFL. And I think you talk about it because of that. He's hungry. I don't remember how long of a contract he's on over there, if it's a 1-year, 2-year deal, but he has a chance to do something there, and he's playing with some talented guys. I mean, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin lead this offensive charge. The offense is 22 overall, 17th in passing. They're only 25th in rushing, and those guys are a dynamic duo. They have 20 and 21 catches apiece, which is huge for their offense. So I'm going to say the Lions could be tested by that passing offense. Now, we have to talk about Mike Evans coming back from an injury. He hurt his hamstring, I believe it was, late in that week 4 game. He was doing some individual work early this week. Don't know what he's going to be for the game. Coach, in addition to having Godwin and Evans as wide receiving threats out there, and we're not sure about Evans if he's going to be there, those aren't the only guys the Lions have to be aware of on the offensive passing game, is it?
No, I think the Otten, I read a thing on, they just love the Otten, Cade Otten, the tight end. He's got 12 receptions for 89 yards. They love his blocking ability. They just say he's a tough kid. He's not getting the accolades that he should get. And so he's one of those ones I think we got to, kind of worry about just because of what Seattle did with those underneath routes.
That makes total sense, Coach.
And again, going back to Baker, is he going to stay in the pocket? Is he going to scramble? Is he going to get hit 12 times and break, all those tackles and then scramble out and throw a pass downfield? He's going to take a shot, and, he's a scary quarterback. Going back to him, I know there's a lot of people in the football world that are always rooting for him. I just believe that because of his past story and his past history. Of course, this week is going to be one of the weeks that I will not be rooting for.
Understandably so, and you're absolutely right. I mean, a guy who has had to prove himself time and time again, those are the guys who just keep coming back when you think they're done. And those are the guys that won't quit, which is also something that the Lions are probably quite aware of.
I totally agree with that. That's his mentality, and I think that's Bowles' mentality. And I think I think coach and them they developed that, and now you're getting hungry guys back. With Devin White coming back, and if Evans ends up playing, those guys are going to be hungry, and they want to prove they know that the country's fallen in love with the Detroit Lions, and they want to kind of knock us down a pegger.
Well, the bye week for them may have come at an unexpectedly good time. I mean, nobody wants a week 5 bye, but they've had a lot of injuries too. There's a number of teams with injuries, not just the Detroit Lions. And in addition to the guys that we've talked about, first round pick Kalijah Cansey, he was out practicing again. He was injured in week 1. Again, I don't know if he's a strong candidate to come back for this game, but that could be another difference maker. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 11th in total defense, 16th in passing, 10th in rushing. So even if their offense isn't as high as you might think, their defense is no walk in the park.
Oh, for sure. And you look at those numbers now. The Eagles ran, I think they put 200 on them, if I am not mistaken. So those numbers are skewed a little bit because of the Eagles, and again, that was a 25-11 game, 2-score game, but the Eagles ran them over. So if you take, and the Eagles are one of the top 5, if not the number 1 team in the league right now, or in both leagues, all the way across, projected to go to the Super Bowl, the whole works. And so, and again, you take that away, and then you take away what they did last week against the Saints defensively. So, we definitely have our work cut out for us. They're thinking that we're going to be running the ball nonstop because that's what we do. And so, Devin White's quote today that I read was, I got to have 15 tackles and I got to be flying around and hitting everybody in sight, so they're coming after us. And again, as Dan Campbell said, well, you don't have to look very far. We're on your front porch.
Well, you said it, that defense is not going to give things up. They did give up a good number of yards against some teams like Philadelphia, but I took a look at the number of yards teams were giving up, and Tampa's yards per game average was not that different than Carolina's. But what was glaringly different was, even though it was in one less game, Carolina, I believe, had given up 17 touchdowns, and Tampa had given up 6. So there's a team that shows they get a little stingy once you get into the red zone. So going from what Tampa might be looking at and doing and expecting, what can we expect out of the Detroit Lions coming into this game? I mean, I think we're going to find a team that is finding its groove. They've got 3 straight wins, and their biggest blowout in a while was this past week. Josh Reynolds, Sam Laporta have established themselves as the top 2 players to complement Amon-Ra St. Brown in that passing attack, and you've just got multiple players getting involved.
Oh, you do, and you listen to Campbell's press conference and stuff. When somebody's number's called, they're producing. And I think that's the biggest thing about our team right now. Amon St. Brown's gone, oh my God. Well, we produce people, Laporta has 2 touchdowns. Monty, of course, is carrying the load in the backfield. And I think that's one of the best things about this team is there's no individuals. They're all team players for the Lions. And I think that's one of the things, Tampa can get ready for what they want. If we're going to run the ball, we're going to play action pass the ball, but they got to figure out who we're going to use to exploit their weaknesses, and that's the biggest thing with the Lions is you never know who's going to produce that week or that game, but that when their number's called, they are gonna produce and have great results.
Well, speaking of numbers, let's look at the numbers. They are number 6 in total offense for yards in the NFL. Their passing game ranks 9th, and their rushing game ranks 7th. And, of course, those are yards per game on average because some teams have already hit the bye week. But that's pretty balanced right there, 9th and 7th to get to 6th. That means you're not overly dependent on the pass or the run. And we've seen Lions teams in the past that have had to be overly reliant on the pass. And when you're this balanced, it shows that the other teams don't know exactly what to prepare for, or if one thing's not working, you can lean a little bit more on the other, because there's a time when you need each. You want to run the timeout later in the game, or you need to play catch up. You need to be able to throw. So that balanced effort that you're talking about is crucial. And I think that's something that I expect to see continue out of the Lions this week.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, they're going to ride what's working, but when they have to, do that 4-minute drill or 2-minute drill, right before halftime at the end of the game, kill the clock, run the game out. We're leading by 2 touchdowns. We got to burn some clock. That's what they're going to do. I look at, we had talked about it, I'm sure you're going to bring it up, but, we were concerned with the third quarter, how we start out in the third quarter. We haven't had a good third quarter all year. Okay. Sunday, we ran the ball for 6 minutes. I think it was. I think we burned 6. We didn't score any points, which I know that Coach Campbell and the crew are working on this week to try to finish those drives. But when you have a lead like you have and you burn 6 minutes off the clock, that was a pretty good start for the third quarter for us. I think that's something that we're going to keep getting better at.
Oh, I agree with that. I think I called it a draw maybe, but even better than a draw. I mean, we burned 6 minutes and actually nobody scored in that third quarter. When you already have a big lead, that's not a bad thing. But the Lions are aware of that. Ben Johnson has talked about that, about trying to get a better start in the third quarter, and I think that will be a focus. Another thing to watch is going to be their defense. It's funny that the offense is number 6th in the league. Their defense is number 6th in the league. They're 18th in passing. They're 3rd in rushing. We gave up 99 yards last week. But the Lions, they're going to be facing their most experienced quarterback since their week 2 game. And so I think that's going to be interesting to see play out and see if there's anything different because of the experience of Baker Mayfield and how the Lions have to contend with him and contain him.
Yeah, I agree. And I think going with the passing yards against us, those are kind of skewed because we've had big leads and we've played soft defense just to keep the play in front of us, and not get a big score, big splash play right away. So those numbers are a little bit skewed. This game will be a great challenge for us because I think it should be a tighter ball game. It will be a tighter ball game. And then we'll see if our defense holds up in the passing situations, the scramble situations, staying in our run lanes. Baker's kind of like the Seattle quarterback a little bit too, where all of a sudden he can break out or if we don't stay in our lanes, he's going to hurt you. So it'll be nice to see if, after this week, if we're still in the same spot at 6-6, then we're in pretty good shape, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's going to be a really good test for the Lions. They're playing a team that's 3-1, and some people say, well, Atlanta was 2-1 when we faced them, but I think Tampa's a more dangerous team. We're on the road. You've got a more experienced quarterback. So from there, let's go over to major storylines or anything else that might be unexpected from either team. I got to say, man, do the Lions keep rolling with a win here, and do they continue to build momentum? I mean, Detroit is quietly, or maybe not so quietly, starting to slide into that number 3 spot in the NFC's best team talk. And I know, Coach, you are all about focusing on one game at a time, but if the Lions do get a win this week, that chatter is only going to grow louder.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's funny because, we got to get to 1-0 this week, and that's what we always talk about. And as fans, who've just been dying to have the Lions in this position where everybody's talking about them. I'm sending you stuff all day long and you're sending me stuff all day long with all the, the announcers, the experts, the news guys, the media, the ESPN guys are talking about. And we're as happy as we are, but we're also cautious on saying how good they are. I think, these next couple of weeks with the 2 road games they have are going to be a telltale sign on exactly how good we are. And again, they have to focus on Tampa Bay this week, but then they have to go to Baltimore the following week. So I think those are things that are going to really, those are things where we can start puffing our chest up out a little bit more and being a little more excited. But again, let's get through this week and then let those trains fill up a little bit more. And with as long as we keep winning, we can keep listening and preaching about how good we are.
I agree with that completely. And yeah, looking at this week, we're still on the injury thing. I feel like there's going to be like an injury report every week that bears watching because There's something to keep an eye on here, right? The secondary seems to be our area that has been hit the most. Unfortunately, Emmanuel Mosley tore his other ACL this past weekend. He is done for the season. We know that C.J. Gardner-Johnson's out for the long term. Brian Branch is banged up. They haven't said whether he'll be available or not this week. We're not sure if Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be back. I thought I heard on 97 won the ticket that he was trending towards doing better. And so you have to look at that. We know that Jonah Jackson was in a walking boot after the game. Don't know what that means for this week. Vaitai did not play in the game last week, but he was suited up and he could have gone in and played if need be. So if Jackson's out, you can always put Graham Glasgow over there and have Vaitai in. And then you also have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's coming back from a hamstring injury that popped up late last week, and that didn't sound too bad. So we'll have to see how that goes. What are your thoughts on the injury situation, Coach?
Well, I think it's the same thing. We week in and week out, it's in the NFL. I mean, like you said earlier, we've seen it in all these camps, these banged up guys. And but we continue to get guys that walk in and fill in and take care of business when they get the opportunity. Glasgow's, he's just played great at guard. I think he was our highest rated lineman the other day.
He was.
Yeah. And so, that's the thing with a 17-week season. That's the thing with the NFL. And, long as we continue to, people continue to step up, players continue to do what they're asked to do and, stay within the realm of the scheme, we're in pretty good shape. The thing I look at is, boy, how scary would we really be if we had everybody? And I think that's kind of the thing that we talk about and everybody talks about is, yeah, the Lions are this good, but they have injuries. Do the Eagles have any major injuries right now? Do the 49ers have any major injuries right now? And we're talking about those because those are the elite teams right now. And so as long as we can continue to fight and push through and, get another big victory this week shorthanded, that's just going to tell what this team's all about.
I agree. And, you keep hearing people talk about the Lions should trade for this person or that person. And you hear big names and, it's always who's the big guy. And, there's a person on Tampa everybody thought the Lions should trade for. And, Coach, here's my thought on this. I'm not going to say the Lions won't make a trade, but I also think we're a couple weeks away from that consideration. And I think it would be a strategic trade. It might not be for the biggest name out there, but I also wouldn't put it past them for making a move to bring somebody in if there's a position that seems to be hit the hardest. And obviously right now that seems like defensive back, but anything can happen. I just think it's interesting. I try to avoid most of that chatter because a lot of it is just people, I call it noise. It's stuff that's not real. And so what are your thoughts on all that?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, everybody's like, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. We got to get that. But again, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and the staff and everybody knows what they need. And they know that they have guys in. Dan stamped it a couple weeks ago when he said, I didn't answer any questions. I just, it just told me what we do have. And I think that's the thing that they have is they're able to piecemeal and get people into situations, and we have enough talent around them to offset any lack of ability. I shouldn't say lack of ability, but not being the elite at that position. And so I don't think you overload the ship or shake the ship up or whatever you want to say it with what they have. They have guys that have been in camp. They have guys that are teammates. They have guys that want to play for each other, and they're showing their faith in those guys around them. If we have a stumble over the next couple of weeks, yeah, you may see a big splash. If we don't have a stumble over the next couple of weeks, they're going to stay pat and they're going to run it to as far as they can go.
And not only that, we've talked about this all year. We go back to the NFL draft for the heck while we're at it. They found the right fits. That's what they're about. You just talked about it. We're about finding the right fits for this team, right? Guys who are willing to step up and do the work when their brother goes down, right? You saw Craig Reynolds step up. That's a thing that I was hugely happy to see because David Montgomery's been carrying a heavy load, and you saw Zonovan Knight go down. And to see Craig Reynolds, you know how hard that guy has worked for where he is today. And to see him pay dirt, get his first NFL touchdown, and carry the load and get more than 5 yards a carry, if I'm not mistaken. And that's just an awesome contribution from a hardworking player. And so I think you're going to see that if the Lions do bring somebody in, it's not someone who's just talented. It's someone who has the character that fits with this team as well.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and let's go back to that touchdown. He was running off the field, and Monty told him to stay on the field. And the staff said, you go get that touchdown. You deserve it. That's the thing. Those are things when you look at it as a coach or as a player or as a fan that a lot of people don't see. And you go, look at how they care for each other. Monty, yeah, Monty would have been great. Monty would have had another touchdown. He didn't care. He had a W, and his partner, the guy that works as hard as he does and practice every day, got to reap the benefits. And that's what I love about this team.
Oh, and let's add to that then, because if I'm not mistaken, he dropped that ball when he went in the end zone, and I believe that it was Marvin Jones who went and picked up the football for him and brought it back to him so that he would have it. I mean, that just shows the teammate aspect you have. You had Josh Reynolds going over there to celebrate with him. And so that attitude, that culture that the Lions have built, those are the intangibles. Those are the things that get more out of everybody's ability. We talk about that. There's coaches out there that get less out of people, and there's coaches that get more out of everybody. And everybody that's listening to this, you have had bosses in life who either get more out of your staff or less out of your staff based on how well they can motivate them and the type of people they are. And Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are the guys that are getting more out of everybody.
Totally agree. And it's fun to watch. Those are the feel good stories about it when you watch the Lions football, as well as the trick plays and snapping the ball between the quarterback's legs too. But that's another reason why we watch it.
Detroit Lions fans, enjoy this right now, because I don't know what's going to happen with Ben Johnson next season. But right now, it is great. This is some of the best I've ever seen. So we're going to talk back about that enjoying thing in just a moment. But there's two players that I think everybody's going to continue to watch closely. And that's Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jameson Williams made his season debut last week and didn't do too much at all. Gave more reason for more critics. And then Jahmyr Gibbs has not, had the 120-yard, 2-touchdown game like everybody wants him to have every week. And again, we know that's not going to be the case with David Montgomery here. And so at our game recap, I talked about part of the reason maybe they're not, flashes out there right now is because the Lions are a pretty good team and they don't need to force feed them. And these are things where, do you want a top 15 pick to be doing well right away? Sure, who doesn't? But at the same time, I want to encourage Lions fans to enjoy the ride right now, because things are going really good, and enjoy these wins. And they're not just going well, the team's playing well together. And these two players are young and they're growing and they're contributing in ways. I know everyone's tired of hearing how Jameson Williams can block, but that talks about the football player he is, right, Coach? He's not just interested in getting the stat of the catch. He's out there doing the dirty work.
Yep. And, and that's what Ben Johnson's thing, no block, no rock, but let's talk about that. That's a guy that's out there. That's an elite athlete. That is probably the fastest guy in the field. He wants to run the fade route or the go route or whatever. Yet when his time came to be on the field, he had 2 or 3 key blocks that sprung the running back for big runs and a touchdown. And so that's part of the game. It's not just about the flash plays. It's not just about catching the ball all the time. It's not about scoring touchdowns. It's doing the dirty work to get to those. His touchdowns are going to come. His flash and his splash plays are going to come. But right now, he had 2 big splash plays in his blocking ability the other day. And kudos to him and the staff for getting him to believe that that's what's important right now until he can get his feet underneath him to make the big plays as an offensive wide receiver.
And that's the great thing, too. The season is always a work in progress for the team. We're early in the season, and so there's a lot of time for both of these players to grow. And if they grow even half as much as some people want them to, I could make this an extremely dangerous team.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Coach, let's head over to prediction time category. Again, prediction time. You can predict the winner, you can predict the score, you can predict anything that you think is going to happen in this week's game. So I'm going to put it out there. What are you throwing out in our prediction category?
Well, we're going to definitely see some adversity in this game, and which is good. We may start out fast. We may, chances are we're probably going to start a little slower than we have the last couple of weeks. I'm going to predict that we're going to have a better third quarter, and if we withstand that first quarter, which Tampa Bay is going to come at us, and we're able to get up on them and have a good third quarter, I think we're going to have a good game, and we're going to shoot for 1-0. But you know me, I'm not predicting wins and losses anymore. I did that once this year. I'm leaving alone.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I put this into the should win category when the schedule came out. I know Tampa might be better than expected. I'm just keeping it in the should win category. Again, you can win any week and lose any week. I do think Tampa's defense is better than the one the Lions faced last week. They've given up many fewer touchdowns, but I do think the Lions are the better team. I think they're playing well, but they're going on the road, and this is their longest road trip since that week 1 opener. I agree with you. I think they're going to face a little adversity in this game, but I do think you're going to see a balanced attack by the Lions offense. I think maybe 250 yards in the air and maybe 150 on the ground. And here's the big one I'm going to put out there. I think the Lions are going to hold their opponent again for the 6th time in a row to less than 100 yards rushing on the game. They held Carolina to 99. It was within a yard, but they held them under 100. I think the Lions defense is going to be up for that challenge.
Totally agree on that one. I like that one too, because you got to run the ball to win.
Awesome. Coach, I cannot wait to see all this unfold in the late afternoon game with a little Florida sunshine down there, perhaps. I don't know. I have not checked the rain forecast, folks, so don't hold me to that prediction. But, Coach, great talking to you. Can't wait to see what the Lions have in store for us this coming weekend.
That is for sure. Have a great week, Matt.
Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. You can find all the episodes at notthesameoldlions.com. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like button. While you're at it, tell your friends about the show, and please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. Until next time, stay gritty, my friends.